everybody, especially those of you in Easter Island who are tuning into the show right now. There have been shenanigans going on behind the scenes, but we're here now for you, for me, for Brendan. This is a long deferred episode of Keep Crawling with Mike and Brendan. So I am one of your hosts, Michael Curtis, the one of the basement dwellers here, and joining me as always is my compatriot, depending on which way Elena has aligned us, either one of these sides over here. So
she's aligned us both chaotic. Brendan LaSalle at your service. So glad to be here tonight. Thank everybody for tuning in and for jumping in and hanging out with us tonight on Twitter. How are y'all doing?
Yeah, we haven't been here for a while. It's been a lot of crazy stuff going on. It's been really hard to find 2 weeks to do one of these, and it looks like it's going to be a little. This looks like this is it for the month anyway, because we've got more stuff coming up. So, but yeah, it's good to see you all again. See, the chat is already very active, so people are apparently. You probably like the rest of us. You're stuck at home because it's been raining and snowing and death, and you just can't go out anymore.
Yeah,
and go hang out with your friends on Easter Island. But anyway, so there's a lot of wood paneling going on in the background here. We love wood paneling. Yes,
even the kid from Easter Island can do it. I forgot about that.
Brendan, we're 2 minutes in, and Brendan has reduced him to.
I had totally forgotten that. Oh, it's so funny. The critic should still be on the air. The critic should have gone as long as it was an endless supply of fun. It should have gone forever. It'll always bug me a little bit. So
it was a wonderful show. The critic, and I was also a big fan, not to digress, but a big fan of Dr. Katz comedy. It was a professional therapist.
Yeah,
so some of my favorite lines whatsoever on that.
That was a super clever idea.
So Brendan, hey, it's not like I haven't seen you in the last couple of months. Actually, in face to face, we've actually been in the same state.
We have indeed
in the same vehicle. So that's
yes.
How we for those of you who don't know, we had a little Goodman Games get together a couple weeks ago. So Brendan and I were out on the West Coast, and somehow we made it out there and we made it back without anything happening to our flights, which would be because this was the same time that the great snow base came down and walloped the middle of America. But somehow it was the most turbulent flight I have ever been on. But I made it to San Francisco. Okay. No.
Yeah, we hit really bad turbulence on the way into for about like an hour, I want to say, and then it was just like, but made it in, made it out. Nobody crashed. Car wreck. I had to drive. I had to rent like this enormous passenger van, and I'm driving around like they're in California traffic. I'm such a redneck. I'm like total Georgian now, and I'm like thinking to myself, if there was, God forbid, there's a problem, because I got half of Goodman Games, art / editing / writing talent sitting behind me. It was like, please don't let anything happen to anyone. So, but we made it, and it was wonderful. We just had a good time. It was really, really cool. We ate tacos and Afghani food. It was really good.
It was good. So, so what have you been up to since you got back?
Playing catch up.
Yeah.
And losing. I've been playing catch up and losing, Michael Curtis. I've been doing my best, but no, it's been good. Came back, a bunch of writing, and of course we're getting ready for GaryCon. So there's been some GaryCon prep. How's your GaryCon prep going, Michael?
God, I can't believe it. I was just looking at I was doing some mental calculations. I was just like, I was trying to figure out my week. It's like, well, I've got to take my car to the mechanic tomorrow, and then we've got another Twitch shows coming up, and then I've got a dentist appointment, and I'm like, and then no, next week isn't GaryCon. It's like, oh yes, it is. Okay, so I have 8 days left to finish up my 1.5 adventures, which apparently I'm going to be running this year. So and pre-gens. So it's on top of, as you said, getting caught up with everything else. It's amazing how a week away from the office somehow manages to generate 3 weeks worth of work to get caught up on. I don't know how that happens. So
absolutely unbelievable. But you know what though? It's all in the service of Goodman Games, which means it's all in the service of fun and all in the service of our marvelous and wonderful fan community, which y'all, I love each and every one of you guys, and I'm so excited to be part of it. And that's how I go to sleep at night. I just keep thinking to myself, I love you people so much. It's worth it. It's all worth it.
And speaking of which, that's actually the perfect segue into what we're going to be talking about. Because as everybody may be knowing, the community has grown in the last 3 years, but there have been certain, peaks. A couple months ago, we saw a big influx of people just discovering DCC for the first time. The DCC first time fan kit has been flying out the door. People have been buying the super duper. I get 5 rule books, and I'm going to Shanghai all my friends into playing DCC. So it's been very, very, very popular. So you see a lot of questions have been showing up on various social media sites. People have a lot of questions. Anything from like how exactly do I make a luck check? To what exactly do my Ds to the big one I've been hearing a lot is what's the adventure path? Like how do I run a DCC campaign? So, Brendan, I thought it would be a good idea to kind of talk about how to set up your first DCC campaign. This is not going to teach you how to create an entire campaign world or anything. These are more along the lines of logistical, just general things to keep in mind when you're putting it together and try to run the campaign that you feel like, is going to be best for your home group. So we're going to talk about a couple different things, and we're going to kind of not address like the entire adventure path thing, but an idea of kind of planning ahead, because as we'll discuss, it's going to get very difficult. It's very difficult to do like an adventure path in DCC the way it is in, say, Pathfinder or fifth edition or something, where you can have a logical progression from like first to 15th level. So so anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
so
It's
all right,
true.
so this is this. Let's start from the beginning here. So you have you read your big blue book. You've got your dice out. You figure out you've actually got some people you want to play, and they're interested. Maybe they've even played a one shot. Maybe they've signed up for a demo or and they're interested. So you want to start up your first DCC campaign. You're kind of an ongoing campaign, or maybe it's your 15th. Yeah. So so the first thing you want to do with DCC is there are many different ways that you can run DCC. Some of it is baked in there, but you kind of have to make a decision about what type of game you want to be running. And this is not only to do with kind of what kind of tone you want to go for, but certain real world applications. Yeah, like how often is my gaming group going to get together? How much can they be invested in, and all the rest of that stuff. So as part of what we're going to be discussing about, Brendan and I are going to each create kind of a theoretical campaign. If we were going to, start from the beginning and, from the tone of it, the inspirations, all the way to like to the first level, like, choices along those lines. So first of all, we want to think about what type of game we run. You can run your standard DCC game, which is, kind of along the lines of, fantasy,
Yeah.
your standard fantasy. But DCC swings a lot of different ways. You can go,
Yeah.
full on Gonzo. You can go grimdark. You can go like any mix of in between.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. And even your standard DCC fantasy campaign is going to have an injection of weirdness at some point that will happen in game. Something will happen. There will be a corruption or a Fluxtongan, I can't say the word, disturbance or some artifact. Help me out. I can't say this.
I have always called it phlogiston. So
Phlogiston. I can pronounce
I've
that.
heard people
Phlogiston.
say they put a different emphasis on the different syllable, and phlogiston, but phlogiston is what I've said.
Phlogiston. Yeah.
I'm not an ancient Greek, so I'm not too concerned about how I say.
No, me either. But so there's even if you just sit down and do a very standard DCC campaign, it can very quickly just sort of change under your feet. It's a different animal than, like Mike said, than DCC is than Pathfinder or 5e.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, that is true, and the mechanics of DCC they're always going to create unexpected things. But you can kind of lean into things one way or the other. For example, the Shutter Mountains. The Shutter Mountains setting is very different. Even tone wise, which was kind of the whole point of what you would call your standard or like your crazy Gonzo. Like we're we're traveling around on a dead god. That's our ship. And then of course, like Lankbar, you have a very different set by what you run that. Dying Earth just dropped, so you're going to have another different style set of So this is all the stuff which is kind of baked into the mechanics, but there's also, you kind of have to make a choice while you're going into it and deciding what kind of style of campaign you want to do will also give you a good idea of like what funnel do I want to tie into it, or like what first level stuff in there. So it's a valid consideration to have right outside the bat, because that's also going to play into a role when you start thinking about what kind of inspirational sources, whether that's movies or music or Appendix N or something. You obviously want to cater toward that kind of media, which is going to feed back in there and give you that idea of that tone. So Brendan, I have an idea for like the theoretical campaign that I want to run. Do you want me to go first? Do you want to talk about menu?
You go ahead and go on first.
All right. So I thought about this a little bit. People may know during COVID, I know Brendan knows from firsthand, but I did run my War Crawl campaign, which was a big campaign, but it was very much focused on the more cocky and the Paul Anderson, conflict between law and chaos and neutrality and stuff. So I think that was that's a really great it's a really great theme, but it's something I've already done. So I said, if I'm going to run a campaign again, I want to do something a little different. So my Shutter Mountain campaign is a little, when I've run that in the past, Shutter Mountain stuff is more kind of maybe not, it's not quite standard, but it's definitely not not craziness as much as like War Crawl and some other stuff was. So I don't want to do that either. So I was thinking, I want to do something maybe a little bit darker in tone. I want to do something that is, kind of the, that aspect of Appendix N. Not something necessarily where people have, kittens for their knees or that sort of stuff, but maybe there's something where we're kind of looking to play into the darker aspects of the inspirational sources. So I'm going to lean a little bit less wacky, a little more darker. That's going to be my plan. That's the type of campaign I'm not Ravenloft dark or not death metal dark, but definitely kind of a conflict of very much an increasing level of conflict and evil, and maybe the heroes, as shifty as they are, have to make a choice of whether they are going to be points of light in the darkness or help the encroaching darkness. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah, grimdark. That was if you asked that question, I don't know if that's a term that that people are unfamiliar with. Usually it's associated with Warhammer, especially Warhammer 40K. But it generally means leaning into a world which grimdark. A lot of conflicts with moral questions and just nastiness. So all right, so that's going to be my starting point. That's going to influence everything else I'm going to talk about for the rest of the coast of the night. So, Brendan, your idea. So, what in your hypothetical campaign? What kind of tone do you think you're going for with yours?
Okay, so my hypothetical campaign, and for me, it's sort of like I was thinking when we first started talking about this. Let's do something for me that I really haven't done before. Mm-hmm. I tend to run kind of like a mix between a very street level thing that then has these spikes of cosmic, dalliance. Very often I run my standard type of things winds up with being very much what you would call street level sort of heroes. They're starting off, they're just, they're basically trying to get loot and get rich, and then they get involved with great big cosmic forces. What I haven't run, and what I really be interested in doing, would be something that was intentionally trying to take the point of view that all of the characters were in some way destined to greatness, either for good or for evil somewhere in the world. So that this was actually like written in the stars before the characters even showed up and became a part of the campaign. And to me, that would go back to I guess the most Appendix N one in my mind would be Lord of the Rings style. You know what I'm saying? Where you have these people who just regular people who become caught up in these cosmic events and will later on go on to having huge roles to play in the balance of the world that will play to it one way or to the other. Okay. But really the one that I really feel like it for, like the one that it's not an official Appendix N one, but my absolute favorite of the genre, which is Ursula K. Le Guin's Earthsea, where here's young Ged from an early age. All of Ged's teachers can tell that he's got this, he's destined for great power. So it's people trying to work with him, work against him, help him work through his problems. They send him off to be educated, and then from there on, it's about him fighting his inner demons, and then eventually becoming this major power in the world that is dealing with the horrific dragons and all the other strangeness that are there of the world. Yeah, I'm huge big fan of it. So that's what I would go for. I would take the point of view starting off that my characters were all, for whatever reason, they were favored of the gods or hated by the gods, and were destined for, to become major players in the great game. Call it.
Okay. All right, I like it. That's kind of a little bit what I was going for with War Crawl. So obviously, I've already, the characters, and just describing what you're thinking of, the back of my mind is going, wow, you could do something fun with like with the birth augury rolls, I mean,
yeah,
you could have that tied into, like, depending what somebody's birth augury roll, that might manifest on how they become whatever they're becoming. So that's one of those things, like the people like, well, I have this awesome birth augur, but I don't have a luck score that gives me any bonuses for it. But maybe being born on the battlefield means something later on in the campaign. But I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's So we both kind of have our tone here, and by the way, Dragon at Rest, the answer is Super 7. At least do a search for Super 7. It's a store. They have 2 stores out, one in San Francisco, where we were recently and where I got the shirt, and another one in San Diego. But you get stuff through them online. I'm not quite sure if they have this particular shirt, but that's where you go look. All right, so we've got our tone, and now unfortunately we have to think about the real logistics. So like this is basically like, who's going to be playing, how often we're going to be playing, how much time do we have to do with each other, because it's if we only have, like, kind of, when I was doing War Crawl, I knew we had about 10 weeks. Like that was the course of the campaign. We would have to accomplish everything we wanted to do that. So yeah, this is going to help. Knowing this kind of information will determine, like, how the structure of how you want to run the campaign, or whether you want to do something which is every week you're going to pick off exactly where you left off the week before, or if it's just like every week we end up back in town, just because we know that Earl and Sue and Billy Bob, like, their schedules are kind of crazy and they're not going to be able to make every session, so we need to reset something so we're all operating from the same point. Or if it's just going to be like nobody has time, and they're just good doing kind of like a picaresque. Every week we run a different module, and then when that module's over, we're in the next module. Like we just have we advance, and we know everything, but we skip all the downtime, and like we just hand wave it at that. After 6 months at sea, after you finish up with the Force of the Croaking Fane, you suddenly find yourself on the shores of where beyond the Black Gate begins. You suddenly find your shipwrecked amongst witches, which can be done. So, which is that's just more of a practical consideration, and it will also save you a lot of time, as you're developing things later on.
Time and heartache.
Yeah, and a lot of heartache, right? And I've found, especially when you're doing War Call, it helps really with pacing. Like, because if you've only had 6 months to run a campaign from start to the ending before school starts, or whatever, some big event nobody's available to play anymore, you can then that'll affect, like, how we're going to do experience points. It's like, do we do it by the book, or we just milestone? And every time we finish an adventure, you go up a level. So when by the time we get 6 months later, everybody's 7th, 8th level or whatever, we have a big climactic stuff. Yeah. All right. So we've kind of got that. So I'm going to assume for my campaign that we can play pretty. I'm going to say we're going to be rather typical. We can play. Maybe we can play twice a month, and maybe we got 3 hours. Or maybe we're playing it, in Future or Zoom, whatever like that. So what? How about you? What's your hypothetical situation with your game?
All right. Well, I will say my hypothetical, which is more realistic. Like, I'm actually playing in a DCC campaign right now with my brother-in-law and my cousin. So what we're doing is at least once a month. Maybe we can fit in twice, but the idea being that once a month, but we plan it in advance, and we know that everyone can make it there, whatever that particular night. So we finish one game, and there's an email chain of everyone discussing what happens, where do we go, what's the next move, what's the next step, in order to make sure that we can all actually play in it. I think for my Destiny campaign, because of the nature of that, I'd want everyone to be able to be there for every episode, and it's just not realistic to do that every week. Not as adults, not in this world,
Right.
not, what I mean? There's just no way. So I think I would try to shoot for, like, we finish one game, and then it's like, all right, can everyone play this day? And if circumstance changes, email chain, we figure out the next time, then we go ahead and do it. And I would try to be really patient with it in that case, because like I said, this is my big one that's going to lead up to my characters either either saving or destroying the world. So I'd want to take my time with that and pick my way through it.
But would you worry a lot about like downtime stuff, or would it just be more kind of like, all right, we're getting together, we're just gonna wave like like none of this, nobody's shopping for gear, we're not gonna go, we're not gonna go negotiate with blacksmith or anything like it. It's just like, if you need stuff, we assume you pick it up, just add it, spend the gold, add it to your character sheet. And then we start in the middle of the bar brawl,
Yeah, honestly, shopping for gear is my absolute least favorite thing in the world. And anytime this has happened to me so many times in my life where people are like, oh, I'm going to go shop and buy this. I'm like, yeah, go for it, out of the book. No, I'm going to go into the store and I'm going to ask if they have any specialty items. I'm like, all right. So I walk in and I'm like, hello, shopkeeper. I'm Jed the Mighty. And I'm like, you are forcing me to be a retail employee. This is my day off. I'm having fun. I can't stand that. Like anyone, you know what I mean? Like I'm already mad. So yeah, I would want all of that. I would just rush through buy it out of the book. Email me if there's something you have to have that's not in the book. Oh, I want a 2-wheeled cart that only has horses on one side and room for my goat or whatever, and a sidecar. Email me offline and we'll just figure it out. I'm not doing that. I'm not dealing with you building stuff. Like, oh, my guy's a dwarven forge master, so I'm going to go around all the places in town. And I'm like, just tell me what you want. We'll come up with a number. I'm just not
discovered one of Brendan's pet peeves tonight. There we go.
Oh yeah.
So it's been an illuminating episode. So no. All right. So we know our schedules. We kind of know what we're going for. One last thing we want to do is we want to kind of, in order, like I was mentioning before, in order to get the right inspiration, we're going to pick a couple of inspirational things to draw on. These might be stuff that we just read before we run the campaign, or we might say, like, hey guys, this is what I'm going to be running. You might want to check out these short stories or watch this movie or whatever like that. So, just so everybody's kind of on the same page. So one of the things we did is we Brendan and I, we talked about like what the theme song for our campaign would be. So and then I had a couple. Brendan mentioned Earthsea already, but I have a couple other like literary things. So Brendan, since we have to tie this into pop culture, this being what we do on this show. All right, what is the theme song to your campaign?
Theme song to my campaign is "The Sacred Heart" by Dio. Ronnie James Dio for the win once again. I think that the whole idea of that, that is maybe it's not necessarily a heart, but this is like the idea of a quest that you're going to give your all to find this one thing that's going to like either set things right or destroy things forever. I think no one does epic like Black Sabbath era Dio, and I would go for that. You know what I mean? Something that would be big and bold, and that would really be about having to give your all in order to make a thing take place and really change the world. That'd be me right there.
All right. Shade Vickers was already yes as soon as the Dino reference is in there. So so I did.
What's up, Shade?
I knew Dino would go over well with this crowd.
So. I mean, it's not. Honestly, there's something about the DCC core book to this day. If I just start flipping through and I'm just looking at art, I'm start being like, "We're off to the witch." I can't not hear Dio /Sabbath. A little bit of Judas Priest, a little Armored Saint thrown in too, but mostly it's Dio era. Dio and Dio Sabbath is what gets me, my way for when I look at the pictures.
You can't go wrong with this crowd. So
no. Right. All right, how about yourself? What would the theme song of your campaign be?
I'm going to go to a standby. I'm going to go to kind of a deep cut on this one. So all right, so technically you can be argued whether this is actually, but I'm going to go with Blue Oyster Cult. Although my pick can be argued is whether this is actually Blue Oyster Cult or not. My theme song is Magna of Illusion from the Imaginos album. So all right, which if it's kind of a deep cut, So
for the internet.
But the theme of this song, it's like story song, is about a ship's captain who ends up going to South America, and he finds something inside of a pyramid. He brings it back to England, and it inadvertently brings about the start of World War I. So for reasons where this is going to be apparent, this is going to be kind of the kind of theme which is going to go through my campaign. So all right, so that's my musical theme for it. But drawing on literary inspiration, I'm going to cheat too, and I'm not going to go. There's my primary source isn't going to be an appendix N, but more appendix N adjacent, because I'm going to go with Clark Ashton Smith.
Ooh,
I'm going to go with his Zothic stories, because what I'm thinking about my idea for the campaign is kind of the big bad, like the. It's that there won't be a big bad per se, but there is going to be a series of big bads, and these are going to be, because I haven't really done one with like the kind of the stereotypical, like wizards like tampering stuff with or clerics calling
mhm.
up with dark gods. But I want like a number of, like a medium-sized bads, and each
Yeah,
one of those can be kind of like, who we have to deal with, who the players have to deal with, from adventure to adventure or something like that, whether they stumble into the, the path of, the necromancer who's building a giant titan out of all the bodies in the cemetery, or a cult, because cults are always fun. I mean, you got a cult leader in there, you got a bunch of mooks, and you usually got something in the background. So I'll be drawing on Clark Ashton's Zothic stories, a little bit of like Robert E. Howard, especially like, Thothamon, that kind of like Thothamon would be like a medium big bad, and then
yeah.
a little bit of, Lovecraft too, so that those are the, that I think those go in well kind of with the tone which I'm shooting for here. So I got
Mhm.
that, got Magnum of Illusion. We know we're going to be kind of doing a standard thing, so we're going to be, we're moving around a lot, and yeah, that's I have the idea already. I've got all this together, and we haven't even made up characters yet. So so
That's
this is
awesome.
the type of stuff. But already you can see that everything we've thought of right now will have bearing, over the course of the campaign. So, it's good to kind of keep this stuff in your head ahead of time.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So so we've got that line. We got our players. We've got together. We've rolled up characters, or either the old-fashioned way or through purple sauce or anything. Now we just got to figure out how to kick things off with the funnel. All right, so this is the important part, because this is going to be everybody's first experience with the campaign, and this is the perfect time to kind of reinforce that tone that you want to be shooting for the rest of the campaign. Obviously, if you're going to run Frozen in Time, like if what I'm thinking about here, I wouldn't run Frozen in Time, because Frozen in Time is, cavemen and time travelers, which is not exactly what I want to be going for. So yeah, so there's a bunch of different types here. We've put some together, like, depending on what your type of campaign you want to be. We got some choices. We kind of broken them down by theme. Well, thank you. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you. Frozen
It
Time.
is, man. I had to. Okay, you know what? I played it. Okay, I had kind of read it, but I actually got to play last summer. In this exquisite COVID game where we're all outdoor on picnic tables. It's just, and it was so cool. I had so much fun. That the initial encounter where you like go down that ramp. You know, I don't want to tell the whole story. It was super fun. I'm about to geek out and tell stories, but I'll say that for another day. Go ahead. Good. Sorry.
Okay, all right. So I've taken some of the official Goodman Games funnels, and I kind of, broken them down, and this would be, this to give you at home, if you're thinking about what kind of campaign you want to rerun and you're not familiar with everything. I've got it kind of broken down all of them. So I'm gonna list some of them. Brendan is going to chime in on some of the ones that he's more familiar with and everything like that. Don't get ahead of me, Bob the Magic One. All right, all right, so Portal Under the Stars. That's the one. If you have the rule book, you definitely have access to Portal Under the Stars. Portal
Mm-hmm.
Under the Stars is a great one for like kind of any traditional fantasy role
Mm-hmm.
playing game, because it's got tomb plundering in it. That it's got traps and guardians. It's got like the potential adventure seed, which leads to like the with the dryad and stuff. So and it's short enough, so you can run that in a single night and get the campaign right off the bat. It is the perfect funnel to introduce people to DCC, because it's got all of that, and it's not. I mean, through the course of play, it introduces a lot of aspects to DCC, but it's not so weird that if somebody is just coming in from 5e and expects something a little bit more traditional, that they're going to be completely turned off to it. So I think that's a good choice for for if you're going to be running a more standard, like like weird, quote unquote, weird D&D type group. I think that you can't go wrong with that. No. Um, what is Brendan? Let's talk about yours. Hole in the Sky. What do you think Hole in the Sky would be a good funnel for what type of campaign?
So I don't think it's not the choice I would make for the campaign. I'm just this imaginary one I'm creating in my head.
No,
But
no, I'm just
I feel
not
like,
for you, but you know what the best. So like, so
yeah,
what do you think that would be good for any type of campaign? You know,
yeah.
so like I
I
said, I'm
think
not going to run Portal in the Stars, but it's a good standard introduction.
yes,
So
absolutely. I would say Hole in the Sky is perfect for your second DCC funnel. You've done it one time. You've already kind of been introduced to it, so the weirdness isn't going to be like pinging you in the head. And you're also a little bit used to the. To me, it feels very funnily. Where there are just some things in there that you simply have to run away from and avoid, because if you charge it with your pitchforks, it will whatever it is going to absolutely batter you to pieces. I think that Hole in the Sky has it's a good, like I said, it's a good kind of basic starting point. It takes everyone away from their, you're like days away from your city of origin when the adventure begins. So you're already like you've already left everything that was comfortable behind. You already have it in your head that like the real life that was yours was stolen away, and that now you have an opportunity to get it back. And it makes you make a deal with a real nasty customer who comes to you smiling, with a handout for a hearty handshake, and is of course extremely bad news depending on how things go over time.
okay.
So I think I don't know.
So you're saying that might be a good one if you wanted to get the idea of like more like powerful supernatural agents at work in the campaign or something. If you want to lean into that, I mean,
Yeah, if you wanted to go, if you wanted in a campaign that was going to go more cosmic, that was going to be a lot of things like Court of Chaos. You know what I'm saying? Like that's where I would go from there.
right.
Where your characters are begin the game basically as cosmic players who already have seen a glimpse of the great game. Then
Okay.
I would start with Hole in the Sky.
Okay, all right, that sounds reasonable to me. So, and you're already kind of leading what we want to, because with those in mind, we're going to be thinking about like what we want to run afterwards. So yeah, all right. So we can't end this topic without talking about Sailors on the Starless Sea, of course. So Sailors is a great funnel. And I think one of that I would use it if I would like the idea behind my campaign was like kind of like there's going to be like a big campaign threat, like the ongoing threat would be like the rise of the Chaos Lords. So this is one of the
Mhm.
things, because obviously we got one coming out at right out of the bat. We got to deal with a Chaos Lord in Sailors on the Starless Sea. So that'd be a good way to kind of bring that theme, if you're going to, is like if like maybe this is the big campaign event, maybe the balance has finally shifted and chaos is beginning to get an upper hand. So maybe now that puts the situation of what the players want to do. Do we stand against chaos? Do we try to get the heck out of dodge? Do we maybe do we line ourselves with chaos? But I think the one thing with the Sailors is you're very anti-chaos to begin with. So it could be I think it's good to use it as an adversarial relationship. And it's got the ending that can literally take you almost anywhere. So I mean,
Yeah.
so from once you got that established, you can go anywhere in the campaign world. You can lead right on to the next thing. So
Mm-hmm.
all right. So speaking of big, giant threats, what about Accursed Heart of the World Ender? What kind of funnel do you think what kind of campaign is that a good match for
All
there, Mr.
right.
Brendan?
A Cursed Heart of the World Ender is good for pure gonzo.
Okay.
When if you just want to like go, everybody go long. If you want to really have a campaign that's really out there, I think the Accursed Heart of the World Ender, before the action even starts, all of the players receive some kind of wild mutation that will make them stand out from the rest of the party and give them some benefits and some issues going through there. It's a crazy adventure, and like literally if the characters fail, the world ends. It's just destroyed. You know what I mean. So get in there, Gong Farmers. We need you to sort this out. And I just sort of love the message that imparts. That like anything can happen in this world, and it's going to happen to you. So yeah, I would really that game is pure chaos. I've seen so many bizarre outcomes come from that, and it's fairly open-ended, but it kind of ends at one place. But people have become kings, become the god themselves. There's it's like destroyed all of the land, united all of the people. It's gone a lot of ways. And if you really wanted to show like someone how swingy and crazy and like the weird side of it, I would start with World Ender.
Okay. So yeah, I will agree that if you've already won, if you've already run a Cursed Heart of the World Ender and you still want to do something Gonzo with your next campaign, then I'm going to say you can do Frozen in Time, because that's another. But I will also say with this caveat is that if you play Frozen in Time kind of with a straight face, it also makes a great introduction to any sort of like barbarian theme campaign. Anyone
Yeah.
want to do something, because that's just like the weird catastrophic event, and then it's over, and now suddenly you're in this harsh environment, and you come from a very very small band which has to get together in order to survive and everything, but now you have this little mini campaign world that you can set off to explore, and you've already had one clash with quote unquote civilization, or maybe that interests you more, maybe there's more of these, that's when you gotta go. So that could be used actually as a gateway into another first level adventure we'll talk about in a minute, which is actually goes along with those themes very well. So,
Cool.
so yeah. So a quick other thing, like obviously, Shower Springs Hollow. If you're going to run a Shutter Mountain campaign, yeah, obviously that's a great way to go into it.
Only
So
way to fly. Yeah.
I wouldn't run that too. If you're not going to run a Shutter Mountains campaign, I wouldn't use that as because it's very much tied into the setting. So and people have mentioned it very much. I thank you very much. Danger in the Air, which is the most recent funnel I've done.
Yeah.
That is definitely, it leans toward the weird, it leans into like the craziness, which is DCC, but if all goes well, it also opens up the idea to like a potentially world spanning adventure, because over the course of that, you realize that maybe there's something bigger going on, and there's like a little map which leads into something else, and who knows,
Yeah.
it's up to the judge to stick anything there, and that could let
Mhm.
they can lead into the party getting a jellyfish boat of their own, and
Oh
drifting
yeah.
off into the cosmos or something. So,
I might use Danger in the Air if my ultimate goal was to have the players arrive on the Purple Planet or in
right.
any other kind of spacefaring kind of thing, because it sets the tone right away. It's such a cool adventure. It's like, I'm actually mad I read it, because like now I'll never get to play it. But it's so wild.
It's one of those ones. It's just like I was like, okay, we this is going to be people's. This was like the first thing I wrote after I took this job, and I said I want to establish what DCC can be. Like I really was just like, I want somebody wandering into their local game store on free RPG days, like, oh, what's this, and open up, just have their mind go, and hopefully it worked out well. All right, so there's one more which I'm going to mention, and I'm saving this for last because this is the one that I would run for my campaign. This is going along with what I've already established, what I want to do, and that is going to be one of our newest funnels, which is going to be Veiled Vaults of the Onyx Queen, because that has just all the right things which I'm looking for. It right off the bat, it begins in media res. The characters are like right in the men. None of this, we have to figure out like why we're going there. You're in there, and also introduces like the very first of what might be like one of my many big bads. It's got a kind of a deathless queen, who has deals with certain powerful forces of the universe. So it's got that perfect Clark Ashton Smith kind of vibe that I'm going for. So that's going to be my choice for my funnel. So do you have a choice for your campaign, like which funnel you would go for?
So for the one for Destiny, honestly, I think I would go for Hole in the Sky, and I think I would lean into the whole thing of them like changing their stars. That the characters made the decision, they took the step, they pulled the trigger, and now they have begun the path of they've altered their destiny at the very beginning, and now that they had the audacity to do that now that essentially gives them a chit in the big game, and that by doing that and by risking everything and surviving, that now they sort of like earned the right to sort of like become a part of these enormous events that are going on. I might go with that. But now that you said about how birth augurs, I don't know, you mentioned earlier how you could play with that. I'm thinking I might play around with the birth augur concept to do that, now that I'm this is quickly going from hypothetical to wait a minute, I could do this summer in my head. And maybe make it where the I don't know, maybe even an expanded table with some like
Yeah.
I don't know. I got to think about it, but yeah, something.
All right. Well, so there we go. We know we know what we're shooting for, but of course we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, because it being DCC, who knows what's going to happen next. But we've run our funnels. Everybody has their characters. They've leveled up, and now it's ready to actually begin the campaign in earnest. So like I said, we don't want to go too far, So we're just going to focus on what the follow-up first level adventure is, and because no sense planning further than that. So couple of choices here for first level adventures we can go through, and I've got a couple picked up myself. Brendan, you might have some choices as well, but let's start with what's one of actually literally the oldest DCC RPG adventure, which is strangely enough, and that would be Doom of the Savage Kings. So which you, if you got DCC early enough, you got a free copy of that tucked into the book. but it's still a perennial favorite, and a lot of people are. And this is the one that I was hinting at, which would make a great follow up for Frozen in Time. So this is because you've got this kind of like you got this this small not quite like fortified village with a Thane and everything, and you can easily see the characters kind of coming out of there, traveling, heading a little bit further south into the slightly less barbaric times, and running across this, and then you start doing your Beowulf your Beowulf adventure right there. So so I think Doom makes a good follow up for it. Although I know a lot of people run it right after Sailors on the Starless Sea. So I think so. That's traditionally has been a good time. So I think that's a good mix. So I'm going to say one of the things you were talking about. Like Intrigue of the Court of Chaos. I think if you're going to be talking about things about roles in the roles in the multiverse of them being chosen and stuff like that, I think that can make a nice follow up to Hole in the Sky. Maybe the events of that they get kind of like the Courts of Chaos, learn about them maybe because they do have a role. Maybe the court is trying to undermine them, or maybe they just maybe they plan to use them as a big cat's paw, so you can see like them getting in early on, and So that's definitely a good one. And I'm going to say that for mine, what I would run after the Veiled Vaults, if I'm going along with kind of the concept which I want to do, and I would run People of the Pit, because that is because that is like the whole cult thing with like this big Lovecraftian horror and everything. So I think that works in well, kind of what with the decision of that type of feeling that I wanted to go with the campaign. So I think that would be a nice tie-in. And it does People of the Pit doesn't come up all that often. It's an interesting one because it's kind of a bigger dungeon crawl. Which so I think. But obviously anything where you run into people who have like a spell, summon tentacle, I mean you can't go wrong with it, right? So
it's wild.
That's it. Do you have any other first level adventures that you kind of spring to mind?
There's one that I think is kind of forgotten, but I'm so fond of. And if it's like whenever the Dark Master is like, go out there, run a first level adventure, I'm always like, you got it. And I run the Abbot in the Woods. I think the Abbot in the Woods it's okay. That would be like a part of my Gonzo campaign, I think, because it is just so heinous starting off in there. You know what I mean? And it's so like it's so crazy, and the consequences of everything you're doing are so big. And if you play it right, at the end, you're fighting a 100-foot tall colossus that's trying to stop you to death while you try to control it by using its arm and its foot that you have to hump through a time-changing dungeon over the rest of the afternoon. I think that it is so neat, and it's so like here's the thing, it's very hard. That is an extremely challenging adventure, and I think some bits of it are like, I don't know how we're going to get out of this. I think it's a great adventure if you've just gotten out of the funnel and you got two characters who live, so you level them both up, and you're like, well, I'll bring Wally along too, and just in case, bring a guy, but I love it out in the woods. And I actually ran it at a couple of conventions. I want to say in 2019, like the year before we locked down, I was starting to run it then. And I ran it again this year, and I'm in love with it. I think it's a great adventure.
Is that was that reprinted in Chaos Rising? I don't.
No, I don't think it's in Chaos. Yeah.
I think that was on my list of things that might need a reprint one day, because that's only the fourth printing of the rule book. So if those of you at home, if you can track down a copy of the fourth printing of the rule book, if you wanted to see what Brendan's talking about. Otherwise, wait around for a little while, and I've got plans to bring some stuff back in, but nothing immediately. So but definitely a good choice. It does get overlooked, probably just because it was in like some of the shorter ones are just in the rule books, and they're not in perpetuity like some of the others.
Wild though. It is a killer adventure, and I've Another one that I've seen go. I mean, that one typically goes all the way to the end. Except I've had a group get to the room before the end room and be like, "Nope, we're just going to leave," and then just like ta-da, and they skedaddle. You know what I'm saying? And there's no, I take it as a no harm, no foul thing if people want to just dip out of there before the end because it's so crazy.
Right. Yeah. All right, so one of the ones I think worth mentioning is also going to be so Dweller Between the Worlds. I think Dweller Between the Worlds, another one of the new ones. It's I think it's another one that makes up a good follow up to After Frozen in Time, because again it's kind of got that that same feeling, at least the beginning of it, and you could easily see it being sharing the same geographical area as the hall in Doom of the Savage Kings. But you can also you could run it after Frozen Time if you don't want to do Doom. So that makes a nice tie-in with that, and especially if you want to introduce the idea of like big armies clashing. Dweller Between the World gives you some rules for if you want to do like armored conflict, which actually might be worth stealing if you're going to do something like Brendan's talking about with like like a Lord of the Rings inspired thing, with big powerful, while the players are running around doing their thing. Of course, you want to have like you want to have this background of massive battles and stuff. So that can be stuff to steal if you don't want to use it outright.
Absolutely. I like to throw out one more too. One that I've run. I ran it for our online game when we were doing Blades Against Bandwidth, and everyone loved it. The Queen of Elfland Sun, one of yours. It's a great first level adventure, and if you like you want to do like kind of a legend, kind of a fey creature. If you want to focus on that aspect of the campaign, it's really a lot of fun.
I purposely left that off the list of my own list just because it's a bit of a cliffhanger, and I owe a sequel to that adventure. It's just a matter of Mike hasn't had time. Mike has ideas. Mike has play tested a couple of things, but Mike has also changed his idea of however he wants to do it. So, but I know people have been doing stuff with that, nothing official. But if you're good with like using it as a leaping off point in the meantime, then by all means go ahead. So. Anything inspired by Dunsany is you can't go wrong. Another one, I think I would pull a little Dunsany into my campaign too, but not so much. But definitely more of like the gods of Pagea or all right. So
Tim White says Abbott in the Woods in the back of Blades Against Death.
Oh, okay, it's quite possible. I don't think you're lying. If you say it is, then it is. So
cool.
It's just some of those do sneak in from time to time, and I forget about them. So,
oh, that's awesome.
No, I just read Blades Against Death, but the only problem is that I read the original, so it didn't have the bonus content. It was just it was the first printing that I happen to have. So,
I have it, and early on, at one point, my wife Lori was like looking through it, and she's like, I might try to run this adventure one day. Would you like to play in it? I was like, yes. So it's never happened, but I have never cracked its holy spine. It's the one I'm leaving to one day. Maybe in the old folks' home, Lori will run that for us or something.
Who are you, and what have you done with my wife?
She liked it. She liked it that much. I don't know what attracted her to it, but she just mentioned it one day. She wanted to run that one. I was like, yes, and I want to let you.
Well, okay, so there we go. So maybe we need a peer pressure, or maybe next time we just get a whole bunch of the Goodman people down, and or we just get people together in Georgia, and when we just show up and say, Lori, guess what? We're running Blades to get that for all of us. So all right,
Brendan, what is the one you ran at Cyclops Con where there is a ruined inn and there's a big tree god? Okay, so that is I know what you mean. That is Lost in the Briars. It was a backup adventure for the reprint of, I think, the Jeweler that Dealt in Stardust. That sounds right. I think that's right. The
Jeweler that Dealt in Stardust is kind of like we've not released that independently.
Maybe that's not it then. It's the one. You know what? I'm gonna look it up real quick. But yeah, it's called Lost in the Briars, and it is my homage to one teeny tiny little picture in the back of the original DM's guide. And has, I think, the nastiest monster I've ever come up with. All right.
It's in the back of Carnifex.
Jewels of the Carnifex? Is that it? All right, so back of Jewels of the Carnifex.
So there were jewels involved.
They were. I was close.
You were close. You were in the ballpark.
Missed it by that much. Oh yeah, I should run that again. I haven't run that in forever. I should run that again. That's a fun adventure.
Oh. If only there was opportunities in this coming year somehow, or if only maybe if we had some sort of online convention that was just announced, we're already taking submissions for, which I realize that I have to decide what I'm running for.
I know.
This is why I decided for UK Game Fair. I'm running old favorites.
Greatest hits, baby. Greatest hits.
I figured we got new people in the hobby. There's people who've never played, me running Frozen in Time, and so yeah.
It's gonna be awesome.
All right. So those are so that's kind of some things just to keep in mind if you're planning on starting up a DCC campaign. A couple final bits of advice for you, and some of this is in the rule book, but we're going to reiterate first. And so the first thing, the biggest one, and this is the trap that I see a lot of first-time DCC judges fall into, is don't plan more than you're immediately going to use if you can help it, because DCC swings pretty wildly, and the dice can change, your plans in an instant. I mean, if you get, so somebody gets a really crazy, spell check result, you can put, a entire subcontinent to sleep, or inadvertently summon up a demon, or that. So, if don't go into it thinking that you can plot out everything from 1st to 10th level, because you just simply can't, which is one of the reasons why we have not put out a quote unquote adventure path, because it's really difficult. It's really difficult to plan that way. If anything, what you might want to do is you might have a recurring thing that can pop its head back in, if you want to have something that, stretches through the campaign, like a big bad or something like that, but it can't be every week, like they're, eventually going to work out to face the big bad, but they can, pop in and out. That's one way to keep it a through fare. So that's one thing. Another thing to think about is how, before you run the funnel, how do you want to run multiple characters per player? And because that's going to come into play during, it's an expectation during the funnel, but as often happens, a player might get lucky, and at the course of the funnel, they might end out with 2, maybe even 3 characters instead of just 1 survivor. So you want to think about how you're going to do that in the campaign. Are you okay with players running multiple characters? Because that's going to adjust, obviously, what type of, how the challenges you're going to throw at them later on. Are you going to just assume they take their best one and then they play that one? Can they bank them? Can they, that character's going to hang out back in town until this character brings, and I can bring him back in here, or even swap him around. Like, I've had a lousy week of work. I really want to play, headbanger battle axe my dwarves, because I just want to hit stuff. I don't want to think about being the sneaky thief, so that's, of course, that'll affect, level progression and stuff, which is, it's okay if everybody wants to do that, so. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. Another thing, and this is, what did you think the official motto or the unofficial motto of DCC is, Brendan? Do you know the answer?
I do. It is quest for it.
That is correct. So yeah, so not only do you have very good. So not only as a judge, you have to be thinking about what to prepare for the adventures, for the characters, just what the adventure is going to be, but you also have to think about, taking that kind of player agency and introducing it to the campaign. So, so if somebody comes up with something, I have this really crowded, I have a really, crappy strength roller, but I really like playing, headbanger battle axe, I would like to get his strength up so I can hit things with my axe a little harder. How can I do that? So you have to be okay, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be like a massive quest. It doesn't have to be something that's going to take 6 adventure zones, but at least it should be a challenge. Like maybe the dwarf has to bathe in the lava hot spring that only dwarves can endure. So, but it's up at the top of the mountain over there. But of course, you have to deal with everything on the way between there and the
changing luck, raising stats, getting rid of that horrifying corruption. All of those things, that we don't have specific mechanic built in for DCC to make it feel more like a living campaign. And we recommend that you quest for it, and that you let your players say, hey, I want to fix this about myself. Give them a way for them to do it. They talk to the wise person who sends them to the wizard who says, I know what to do, and sends them on this quest to do whatever it happens to be to allow them to to fix or change or make whatever rearrangement of their character and their campaign they want to do, and they will have so much fun doing that. It's much more fun than, oh well, I leveled up, so now I got +2 of my whatever. You know what I mean? Like quest.
And this is another reason why, you know, I would say the DCC doesn't lend itself to Adventure Pass all that well, because you never know what the players are going to want. You know, they will come up with their own crazy offbeat ideas. You know, they may want to have that cart with the sidebar, and if that's the case, they're not going to be able to go into the place they're going to buy it. Brendan's going to say, well, there is one of those, but you know what? It's the chariot of a god that everybody forgot, and it's located in their forgotten, you know, temple, which is located at the bottom of the acid lake. You know, so
you have to defeat. You have to defeat Bugba Bill's side hacker team. Side hacker, look it up.
It's a terrifying thought. Why didn't that sport take off?
I'll never get it, man. The 70s, right?
Why isn't there an Olympic event for side acting?
We weren't. None of us ready. We're not worthy.
All right, Brendan, I'm going to commission something for you. All right, X Crawl number 9 is the all side hacking adventure. That's a side hacking X Crawl. That's it.
He thinks I'm playing, but yeah, it's done. I'm using purple, so you know I'm serious.
So do you have any other advice that you might come to mind for people who are planning their first or their 450th DCC campaign that maybe we haven't done?
Just this, even more so, you know, player agency is always important, but even more so than in other systems, I feel like DCC allows itself to players doing something crazy and that leading to something crazy, which leads to something crazy. You know, if you resist those kinds of things, everyone's less happy. Best thing to do is go with it. Flow with your adventure's weirdness. If your players are all in the mood to do something nuts, just like pick that vibe up and run with it. I think that DCC does a better job with that kind of action than any other system I've ever played. And I just want, you know, I think that if you're going to play DCC, really explore that part of it, that those moments that will never happen in any other game or any other system.
Yeah, that's good advice, and that's actually advice that players can use more, you know, more than judges use, because I mean, we live in a culture which is very much in the way of passive entertainment. You know, where people just want to sit and they want to be entertained. They want to plop their ass down in front of a movie, or they want to watch somebody else run a role-playing game on Twitch, you know, which is, I mean, that's fine. But, you know, if you're going to be involved in role-playing, you're already suggesting that you want something a little bit more than that passive entertainment. So don't be afraid to bring that activeness to the table. Don't, like, you know, come up with that crazy plan that you want to do, you know, I mean, and feed it to the judge, you know, say, all right, I do want to get the side hacker and, you know, carry to the gods, or, you know, I mean, the more that you are invested in the campaign, the more that will feed the judge, and more you feel like you're having an impact, and hopefully you're going to set yourself as a good role model for your fellow players who may not be doing that as much, you know. This is kind of, I've been running the One Ring game for a little while, and there's some of the players are more active in that, and their story has been evolving much more. There's players who they're just very happy hitting stuff with an axe and do a really good job at it. But, you know, there's also those who have much more of a story arc, you know, in the course of it. And the same thing with DCC. You know, it's like anything in life, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. No. That is I think that is my last piece of advice. So, you know, so once again, Brendan, somehow we have made it through an entire hour without.
I don't know how we do it.
I don't know, and you know, and without another Easter Island reference. So I don't know. So it's really.
So yeah, that on DVD. I'm putting that on tonight, man.
We put that on. So yeah. So your homework for tonight is go watch it. Available streaming or not. That's just one of the things I have to go. So all right. So as you all know, that you've been watching for the show for a while, we have a sponsor every week. And Brendan, who is our sponsor this week? That is not Easter Island Side Hackers.
It's not Easter Island. It's not even Side Hackers or Easter Island guys on Side Hacks. With the giant head, just boom right over. No, not even that bit of glory would do it, because our sponsor for this week is, of course, War of the Cyclops Con. War of the Cyclops Con is coming to you May 6th through 7th of this year. Submissions have just opened up as of, I think, yesterday. So go on there to tabletopevents.com and go ahead and enter your games in there. We're looking for people to run anything from the Goodman Games line of products, including 5e, DCC, MCC, Blankmar, Dying Earth, Shutter Mountain, Empire of the East, any of those. X-Crawl, for God's sakes.
Yeah, go crazy, man. Go run Metamorphosis Alpha. You know, just go crazy. You know, so yeah. I mean, I have to think of what my event's going to be. This is like our 6th or 7th Psychop theme.
This is number 6. Yeah.
Wow. So
I'm running all Dinosaur Planet the whole weekend.
You know, I mean, we really need that. We need somebody. You know, we need to talk Mark Birder. He needs to run Dino Crawl Classics again. I think we need.
Don't tease. Oh, Mark, we need you, baby.
Yeah. So plenty of time to submit your events. I hear rumors there will be a Saturday night social hour, so a good chance to kind of get together and have a couple of drinks with your various members of the DCC community and you know, there might be. I've heard rumors there might be something happening even before then. Maybe something somewhat recently. Maybe to be announced. If anybody's not doing stuff, you know, maybe this weekend. Maybe something.
Maybe this weekend there might be a kickoff social. Maybe Friday. Maybe come and check out. Maybe this is the place to be this Friday. And because obviously this Friday is what holiday is this Friday coming up?
Easter Island Day.
No. Easter Island Day. And of course, you don't want to drive out there because the Easter Island guys have their heads up the car windows and it's going to go over like the Flintstones. Kaboosh! So you don't need that action. So stay home, hang out with us, have a little, and watch the show because we're going to be on here and good stuff.
Most of you are going to be home working on your Gary Gunn game anyway. So because I know
I will have us on in the background.
I will probably be joining the festivities as I'm working frantically away. So all right. Well, there we go, folks. We've done another hour. Keep going. We will be back next month, obviously, because in 2 weeks from now, Brendan and I are both going to be on planes coming back from from Wisconsin during our normal time slot. So, so if you're not going to be there, if you're not going to GaryCon this year, maybe this is the perfect time to start working on your new DCC campaign using all the information we've given you tonight. So thank you very much, people. It's always great to see you. I'm glad to see the chat is so happening and everything. And, you know, we'll see you next month sometime. So until then, just keep crawling. Okay.